Welcome everyone. This is the Masterclass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of teaching experience and I'm here to help you with your doubts, if any. Today we look at the poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was born on October the 21st in 1772 at Devonshire in England. He was a poet, he was a critic, and a very good philosopher. He was a contemporary of William Wordsworth. In fact, they've even written a book together called The Lyrical Ballads. He died on July the 25th, 1834 at London in England. This poem is a very long poem. We'll only be studying part 1. Continuing on, it is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. By thy long grey beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? Look at the language here. The language is Old English. An ancient mariner, which basically is an old man, an old seagoing man, he stops three people who are walking along. So the person who stops says, "Why are you stopping me? You have a long grey beard, your eyes are glittering, you're obviously wanting to say something, but why are you stopping me?" And he continues, "The bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayst hear the merry din." So the man goes on to tell the mariner that, "Listen, I am the next of kin of the person who is getting married. You can hear the sound coming from the place where the reception, where the wedding is being held. You can hear the guests screaming, shouting, enjoying themselves because they're already inside, they're at their food, they're at their meal, and I would like to go there." He holds him with his skinny hand. "There was a ship," quoth he. "Hold off, unhand me, grey-beard loon." Eftsoons his hand dropped he. The ancient mariner, the old man, refuses to listen. He starts the story off, and the guest is having none of it. He pulls his hand away. "Are you crazy? I need to go to the wedding." He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. The old man simply looks at this guy who has so rudely pulled away his hand. And that guy is struck by how stern, how old he is, and he stands there like a small 3-year-old child who is being scolded for something he or she has done. He is listening to the old man. The wedding guest sat on a stone, he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The wedding guest is forced to sit down on a stone and listen to what the old man has to tell him. What does the ancient seafaring mariner tell him? "The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared, merrily did we drop, below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top." He starts saying a story of a time he sailed on a ship. The ship came out of the harbour, it sailed out of the harbour, it cleared it without incident. It passed the harbour, went past the hill, went past the lighthouse. In other words, it reached the sea without any problem whatsoever. Everybody was happy, cheering that these people are going out to sea. Hopefully when they come back, they will earn a lot of money, which they can use for their households and spend in the town. The sun came up on the left. Out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. We can understand that the ship has sailed out of England. We know that it is the Atlantic Ocean. If the sun came up on the left, it basically means we are sailing north towards the Arctic Circle. And on the right, the sun goes from left to right, it came back into the sea. In other words, days are passing. Higher and higher every day, till over the mast at noon, the wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. So the mariner, this ancient sailor, continues the story. Higher and higher every day. So basically, we are in the Atlantic near the equator. Because it is at the equator that the sun is directly overhead. So the sun seems to be going overhead directly. We are near the equator. And here the wedding guest, he wants to go to his wedding. He hears the sound of a music instrument and he beats his breast. My God, I have to go. The bride had paced into the hall, red as a rose is she, nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrelsy. So the bassoon announces the coming of the bride. The bride comes into the hall, the bridal hall. She is red as a rose. She's very, very fair. And before her, singing and dancing, go the people playing the musical instruments. The wedding guest, he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The wedding guest, he needs to be at the wedding and he's wanting to go there. He doesn't want to hear the story. But he cannot break himself out of the spell of the ancient sailor, the old man. And he's hearing what the mariner told him. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his overtaking wings and chased us south along. Till this point, everything is going fine. There's a fair wind. The ship is sailing around. Remember, it is the time of the sailing ship. There is no machines. There are no engines. It is sailing with the help of the wind. So here, suddenly out of nowhere, a storm comes. And when the storm comes, it was strong, it was powerful, it was violent. And it hit the ship and moved it away from its path and sent it towards the south. Where it was sailing towards the north, it's now sailing towards the south. Because all that the sailing ships could do at that time was sail before the wind. The next lines. With sloping masts and dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward aye we fled. With sloping masts. Now when a ship is on the sea, it's obviously sailing straight, right? But when the storm goes, the waves begin to rise up and down. So the ship goes up and down with the sea. So it goes up, it bends down, goes up, bends down into the waves. So at times, the prow is facing up, and other times it is dipping into the sea. And the masts themselves, the mast stands straight, remember? On a sailing ship, the mast stands straight. That is also moving with the motion. The masts are sloping, sometimes backwards, sometimes forwards. It is for all the world as if to say two people are fighting and one person is running, and the person behind him is like intent on beating him with something. So he's continuing behind him, yelling at him, hitting him. And the guy in front is running and running for his life. Similarly, the ship is running before the storm. It is running in front of the winds that are pushing it along. And southward, ever southward, moving towards the south, the ship is moving in front of the storm because it has no choice. And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice, mast high, came floating by, as green as emerald. So the entire weather has changed. Where it was warm, where it was sunny, now you have mist, you have fog, what we call dhund, and you have snow. So ice is beginning to fall because it is beautifully cold. And in the water you have icebergs. So they are as even taller or as big as the ship itself. They come floating by, green as emerald, because they're mirroring the color of the seas around them. And through the drifts, the snowy cliffs, did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men, nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between. So now the ship is moving through ice blocks, areas that have been iced over, icebergs that are floating on the water, ice to the left, ice to the right. So the color of everything has changed. A dismal sheen is just a shiny bright white. And you cannot see anything. You cannot see men, you cannot see beasts, because you cannot see the land. Between everything, left, right, front, back, all was ice. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. It cracked and growled, and roared and howled, like noises in a sound. Like we were talking about, the ice is now all around them. And In some places, it cracked and fell off. So there was a lot of sound, a lot of noise. The wind was blowing through the ice. And like when you put your hands together and blow, or you put your mouth together and blow, you whistle. When the wind blows through something that is funneling it, it makes a lot of noise, which is what was happening. And the people on the ship were obviously frightened and worried. At length did cross an albatross, through the fog it came, as if it had been a Christian soul. We hailed it in God's name. So after drifting for a long time through the storm, through the ice, seeing nothing living at all, suddenly they saw a bird, an albatross, who came flying through the fog, and the sailors on the ship felt an immediate connection to that bird. It is as if God has sent us a message. It ate the food it ne'er had eat, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us through. So it ate the food it never had eat. Basically, the sailors are feeding the bird. Now the albatross eats fish, but whatever was given to it by the sailors, maybe dried meat, maybe dried fish, it was eating. And it was flying round and round the ship. And suddenly it seemed as if it brought them luck, because the ice which had trapped them all around cracked and a channel opened up between them, and the person who was steering the ship sent the ship sailing through the ice. And a good south wind sprung up behind, the albatross did follow, and every day for food or play came to the mariners. Hello. Now the storm is finished, and a south wind started blowing. In other words, the wind now came from the south. The albatross followed the ship, and if you called it, it came, whether to play with you or whether to eat. It came because the mariner or a sailor friends called. In mist or cloud, on mast or shroud, it perched for vespers 9, whiles all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. So, whether it was misty, whether it was cloudy, the bird came. It sat down on the mast, it sat down on the ropes that pull the sails up. Shroud is actually the name for the ropes that are used to pull on the sails. It perched for vespers 9. Vespers is an evening prayer. If we say vespers 9, perhaps this poet is suggesting that it came for 9 consecutive evenings. Whiles all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. Now everything is given this color, white. The moon is white, the fog is white, the cloud is white, everything is white. Like supernatural, it is connecting the natural, the albatross, where it is coming from fog and cloud, to the mast, the shroud. It's coming for vespers, which is again man-made. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. Here we hear the sailors suddenly cry out, what is going to become of you, ancient sailor? May God save you from the devils that are behind you. Why? What has the ancient mariner done? Because for no rhyme, no reason, just because he can. It's a senseless act of destruction. What did he do? He took a crossbow. He fired an arrow at the albatross and killed it. Was there any need to kill the bird? No. He just did it because he could. That is why the other sailors cried out, why? Why would he do this? What are the themes that run through the Albatross Part 1? It's basically pride and fall, and the religious symbolism that is associated with Christ, Jesus Christ. Pride and fall of what? You see, man believes that he can control everything. He controls the ship, he takes it out. But in the end, when the natural world intervenes, when the storms begin to come, he realizes he cannot control everything, and he prays to God. And what does God do? Send him a sign, sends him an albatross. And the albatross represents Christ. That when we think we can do everything, be masters of all we survey, we are reminded that no, we are very small people, and that is the time when we turn to Christ or God. That's it then. I hope I have been of help to you. Please do remember to like, subscribe, and share. Remember, there are other people out there who might need our help.